Sales are easy. It's making the call that's hard. Hi, my name is Dave Gallegos. I've spent the last 25 years in the mortgage industry and a lifetime in sales. In this show, I'll bring that experience, expertise, and the experts I've met to you with actionable advice to improve your sales. It's not magic. You just make the call. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Make the Call. My name's Dave Gallegos, and I have a special guest today. His name is Ryan Pettigrew. Thanks for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Ryan's been working for Zenith Home Loans for 6 years now.
Yep. Coming up in August will be my 6-year anniversary.
Right on.
I know.
And so thank you.
Thank you.
And Make the Call is a podcast designed for salespeople in the mortgage industry and real estate industry, but mostly loan officers. That's what we are. What I've been doing lately is I've been inviting other originators from different companies around Colorado, around the Denver area. And then I was like, oh, I should invite some of my own loan officers onto this and talk about their experience and being a loan officer. And Ryan's got a cool story just because there's a big family connection of why he's here, not my family. And then so I want to hear about that. I want to hear about everything. I think the value in this is loan officers sharing their journey from where they started, because I think everybody goes through the same challenges and then where they've ended up. And I think you're a really interesting subject just based on your experience and what you're going through and where you are in your business right now. So thanks again for doing this. Let's get started. I'm
excited.
Start with, where were you conceived? I'm kidding. Where's your family? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I moved out here from California in 2007. I was born here, had family here, relatively easy transition. And, right in 2007, my parents got split. Life kind of happened for me and got a little rocky there for a bit. I was in 7th grade.
Oh, tough time then.
Tough time for sure. Yeah, I definitely was rebellious, resentful. I think as a kid, either you go and rebel or you just kind of shut down. So I was the rebellious. My brother was the guy that just shut down and played video games. That was us. I went to school in Highland Ranch High School. I went to CSU, so I stayed in state. I got a liberal arts degree because I had no clue what I wanted to do. And so I learned how to communicate with people, nonverbal communications, all the fun classes that you probably are still, never going to use in your entire life. But I got out of college, still had
nonverbal communications.
Nonverbal is actually good, but yeah, I had film studies classes, stuff like that.
What did Renee Rodriguez say? 93% of communications nonverbal.
Mm-hmm. That's good point. Yeah. So maybe that I do use that a lot more than I
probably
think.
Do. Yeah.
Right. So got out of college. I didn't know what I wanted to do still. And I still don't know what I want to do, Dave.
You might have figured it out.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I went to go work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And I worked my way up really quickly. I was commuting down to the Springs, though, as a branch manager. And I had a moment where I think my last suit pants ripped that day. And my tie kept getting sucked up in the hose. And I looked at myself and I said, I think I'm a little bit better than this for $60,000 a year.
But Enterprise does a really good job. Enterprise is I think it's a fascinating company. They're really well run. I don't know how well run it is. I've never worked there, but from my perspective, the global, is it global? Or is it just US? So
no, it's global
company.
Yeah.
And they have they're well known for bringing kids out of college and getting them into their system and training them. And then you felt like you and I've talked about this before, so I'm not completely surprised by what you're saying, but the kind of a grind, really a grind
for sure.
And not feeling like you're overly valued for the role.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
business.
It's a super tough business. When you think about it, Enterprise, most people think I go on a trip, I rent a car. Most of Enterprise's business is actually insurance related. So all what they call, the home city locations are all you're renting. 95% of the people just got in a car accident. So first and foremost, they're not really happy to see you because they're getting a car. And if they, don't get the car they want, all the different things. So you really learn how to massage and, have really good customer service. And, I think we've talked about this a lot, but Enterprise is a margin company. It is, you're renting cars at $25 a day. right? So it's not like you've got big incomes on this. So everything is ran very tightly. They teach you that from the beginning. And that was a good skill for me to have as a branch manager, is how to, I'm the guy. It's like having my own P&L branch, right? Truly, that's kind of what I had, obviously with a little bit of oversight on top of that. But that was really cool for me to learn that as a, 25
Well,
year
I
old.
think that's one of the things that stood out to you when you first got into this business. You saw somebody like, because the dollar amounts that we throw around in our space
Right.
versus the dollar amounts that you came from,
Yeah.
it's like a whole different, like,
Right.
oh my
We
God,
were like,
what's going
right.
on
When
here?
I first got here, and we were just throwing around $500 credits, $1,000 credits because somebody was mad or we pushed a closing or whatever, right? I was like appalled, because if somebody asked me, we would always ask, how did you feel like your service was at Enterprise? Because it was huge, right? It was called the ESCI score, Enterprise Service Quality Index. And if we didn't get a good ESCI score, you were never getting promoted. So you always ask client, is there, if you get a survey call, will you give us 5 stars? Yes. If some people said no, then you say, how can I make it up to you? Right. And like, comp my rental, $400. And you're like, sorry, I can't do that. What else can I do? Right. And so, just knowing that, amount of money that we were looking at for a global company, yet these mortgage companies that take in a minuscule amount of income in comparison, we're just throwing around thousands of dollars like it's coming out of our ears. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Night and day.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because that's one of the things that is very prevalent in our business is the lack of financial discipline, the lack of fiscal discipline and fiscal literacy. Like, I think I felt like when I first started talking to you about this, I was really impressed that, and it doesn't make sense because the company built a model where like every nickel counts, because every nickel does count.
It does.
Every nickel counts in every business.
It does. And it's fun to learn that, because I think when you get granular on that, you really start to thrive. And I think we do a great job of it, right? That's why we're one of the few companies that are rolling a profit,
Right.
Month over month, in comparison to these people that are having to get bought because they're millions of dollars in the hole. Right. So with that being said, did my enterprise path, realized that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and was just talking to people as I naturally do, was telling them I'm kind of poking around. What do you do? What do you do? And one of the top originators here, Chris Hauber, happens to be my now brother-in-law. There was a funny story. I think everybody, in the office has heard this at this point. But when I went to go ask my father-in-law to marry my wife, he knew I was poking around for a new job. He, said yes. And basically the next sentence was, now you can go ask Chris for a job as well, too, since you're in the family. So I think that was truly a week after I had gotten engaged, we ended up having coffee.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was.
Sorry, not engaged. A week after I had asked my father-in-law.
Okay.
So
you hadn't asked her yet?
I hadn't asked her yet. I asked her a couple months into working at Zenith.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we had coffee, and the rest was history. And one of the funniest lines I remember
you and
saying,
me had coffee.
Yes.
He did ask her, and they're still married. They have 2 kids.
We do. Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the funniest lines was, you can make a lot of money in this business, but don't go blowing it on a Corvette the first time you get a big paycheck. I won't. It was.
It's great advice.
It was good advice.
It's still good advice.
It is still good advice. Yeah. Little
Right
did
on.
we know we were going to have the years of COVID in front of us.
Yeah, right. So what year? So 19? That was 19?
That was August of 2019 I started. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we had just launched Zenith that year in January. And then tell us about that. So what was your job the first year in the business? You didn't jump right into sales?
No, I didn't. That was back when you required granted, I would think I was sprawling. What is it? I was probably 25 at the time.
Yeah.
25, I think. I was 25. You said, go learn the business and be a processor. Yeah. And I said, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to pay me a couple bucks to do that?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, dude.
Yeah.
So did that for about 6 months. And after looking at homeowners insurance declarations pages for 6 months straight, I was ready to finally get into sales.
Yeah, right.
And an opportunity came up on.
Well, you got licensed first.
I did.
You were going to go out on your own.
I was.
Right.
I was going to go out on my own January of 2020. And the opportunity with our top producer, Giuseppe, had came in to the fold. And as a prideful young man that wanted to go make a name for himself, I did not want to take the opportunity to be his assistant.
Right.
I didn't think it was worthwhile. Little did I know he was going to close north of 600 loans that year.
Yeah.
And I was going to get, 10 years of experience in 1 year. And it was the best opportunity that's ever been presented to me, honestly, to this day. It was so integral in the instant success, because that year I sold a little bit. I think I closed 7 loans, and, seeing how much production everybody was doing, I was like, I want to go out now. Because after that first year, we just became partners. I wasn't an assistant anymore. And I remember telling myself, I want to go do 100 loans my first year. And we all kind of thought that was like, okay, cool. Giuseppe's doing 620. You could do 100, right?
Yeah.
And I closed 42 loans that first year. And I was not very proud of that. Looking back on it, I should have been ecstatic. I should have been. And, I just beat myself up because I wanted to do 100. And I think everybody was pouring loans out of their ears that I didn't realize how great that was. And now looking back at what was truly my first year in sales, having done 42 deals was pretty sweet.
It's astounding. I forgot that was your first year production, but that was really, that was amazing. Everything got amplified because, like, I used to think that a good first year for a brand new producer with no experience, even after spending a year in processing, you get 24 loans out of them. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's 2 loans a month. Because that first year, you're still learning what to do with your time every day.
Mm-hmm.
You were in an environment where, it was an extremely favorable rate environment. It was an extremely favorable purchase market environment as well, because lots of people were moving, lots of people were buying. And it was tough then too, because homes were still, we were struggling with inventory back then.
Yeah.
But 42 loans was like, that's a banner year for a new guy.
Mm-hmm.
Banner year.
Yep. And then I followed that up with 43 the next year, but it was I don't know if I did many refinances, if any, that year.
You did a lot more purchase business.
A lot more purchase. Yeah, I grew.
Yeah, because the refis were gone.
Right, exactly. And then the year after that is when we had, kind of our 11, 10, 2023 moment when I closed, I think, only about 38 loans that year, pretty down, right? And then,
talk about that 11, 10, 23. What was going on for you? And this is important. So if you're listening to this is, if you're just be honest and just share what the struggle was and what you were struggling with internally and personally and what we did.
Well, I became Giuseppe's partner. We partnered on a team. And when you partner with somebody that has been in the business, I mean, now he's been in business for 20 years, right?
23 years, yeah.
It's
well,
really,
by then, 22.
And we couldn't be further apart personality wise, right? He's relatively, like just a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved, technician, engineer kind of type, right? He wanted to be pre-med. That's how he operates his business is, not that I'm not detail oriented, but like detail oriented to the absolute T. And I'm a little bit more free flowing and personalized and goofy. And that's who I am. But, throughout being his partner, I just copied everything he did because I was like, he's super successful. Let me copy him. And I think that finally culminated in 2023 to I didn't have an identity in this business. It was just Mr. Copycat. While that can be great, you lose who you are and you lose your passion and you lose how, maybe you should be doing certain things because you're just copying. And
that was the year. I think that was the year that you were starting to share. We would do your Zoom presentations.
Yeah.
And this is funny now because you're not going to like it, but it was, well, you probably are, but it was funny because I was like, you would send me those Zoom videos and I was like, who is this guy? Like, I don't even know him. And you had this kind of not creepy smile, but like a fake smile as you were talking to customers. I'm like, and then I remember Tim like going, dude, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Because you're certainly not being Ryan Pettigrew. And that's what I think that was the big aha was like, I got to be myself.
Yeah. And I don't know what got into me to just all of a sudden be completely different. But if you looked at those Zoom meetings to where I'm at now, I'm completely different.
Well, yeah, you're having fun.
I'm just having fun. I'm goofing.
You weren't having fun on
No. I was like,
you were just like,
please use me. Please use me. We all feel it, right?
Yeah.
We're in a tough year. You're not being yourself. You're just hoping that client says yes, and now I don't really care. I know I'm going to vibe with the people I vibe with. And of course I do. And there's some people that I don't, and that's okay. But
I still care, but you're not as invested in the outcome.
I care about truly more the outcome, but I don't care in that moment. Right? Like, I'm not worried about, is this person going to use me? Do they like me? How do they think they're perceiving me? And so, yeah, I've leaned into that 11/10/2023. We had a, for a lack of a better term, coming to Jesus moment. That is a sticker on my desk, because we knew in that moment how powerful our conversation was and the things that I was going to change and work on and put in the work. And I did.
Yeah.
And I did it, and it manifested itself into, my best year yet. Last year, I think I closed 58 loans, for just shy of
doubled your business.
pretty close. Yeah. It was, just shy of 30 million.
Year too.
Right.
Like it was a really tough year.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that I know one of the things that you really worked on was self-image, right? And that's where I think that's what was sticking out to me when I watched those videos that you shared, were those moments where I'm like, you're not even being who you are. And then I know you as, Ryan's like a scratch golfer. And when you talk about golf, I'll listen to everything you say. You clearly know exactly what you're talking about. And if you were trying to teach me how to play golf and you told me I had to do something, I would just do it because because you know what you're doing, and there's no doubt that you know what you're doing. And you were I used to say, is like, you just need to be Ryan the golfer, but Ryan the mortgage guy, and just be that confident. And I think that that's maybe where you finally went, what the hell am I doing? Right.
Yeah.
Like because you weren't that, and you do know what you're doing. You're one of the more like, you turn over some of the best files that we get in the back room. You're when you say you're not that exacting, I think you're actually really good at loan structure with your clients and setting the expectation, and you do all of that stuff. That takes confidence. I've always said, like, man, you have to know what you're doing. And if you know what you're doing and you're telling your client what they have to do, they're going to do it because right? And you were acting like you didn't know you knew, even though you knew what to do, right? You acted like you didn't know. And I think it was that. I think you got it in your head that maybe it was like, I have to do it like Giuseppe does it, or I have to do it like Chris does it, or like Jacqueline does it. And you finally was like going, nah, I just got to do it like I do it. And that's what I think that was the big switch.
Yeah, it was funny. It was just like cutting the cord. And I think, you get to the self-image issue, I think, is probably something that many people go through. It's hard, it's probably not easy to feel like you're deserving. I'm sure people go through this. I'm sure there's also delusional people that out of the gate are like, they crush it because they just have that self-confidence and that self-worth. To me, that was something that I grew up as a challenge and an opportunity. I was always socially self-conscious. Maybe you didn't ever see that on the outside, but really, really, really deeply down, I cared too much about what everybody thought of me, and was always, I think this is tied back to just even my earlier days when my parents got divorced. I was just seeking for like somebody to just love me and like belonging, right? And like being part of the cool crew. And that just, kept getting its way kicked down, and you down the road, and all of a sudden you're 15 years down the road and you're still kind of have that mindset of, I need to impress people, right?
Interesting.
And then you need to fit in, and you need to be that professional. And I finally just have leaned into caring about people more authentically, and I don't care as much about what people think of me, because I realize we have all of our unique personalities, and I have seen some of the most opposite people get along, and I'm like fascinated by it. I'm like, that guy is gregarious, that person's reserved, but they love each other. But it just made me realize that you can really, really, truly be yourself. And funny enough, one of my coaches was like, you should reach out to your top agents and see why they love working with you. And it was really cool because it's helped me lean into this more. But they're like, besides, one of them was like, well, number one, you're like such a bubbly, amazing person that like we can just like get along so well with, and our clients love you, right? Like that was cool. I got that from multiple people.
That's very cool.
And then it got into like the process and all that kind of stuff, right? So for me, that's been something I've, luckily I haven't had to think about as much over the last year, but really something that we worked on together.
I still say the self-image, the mindset part of this business is the toughest part and the most important part.
Most important for sure.
Most important. And I think I don't think enough people realize how important it is, and they work on all the other stuff. They work on, I got to watch this podcast, and I got to learn how to do this product, and it's like, nah, you really got to work on, your value, and that you're here, and you're here to help people, and that you're just going to be yourself, and you're going to have a heart to serve, because you've always had that. Like, that was never a doubt for me. Like, I know you wanted to be successful in this business and make a lot of money and all of that stuff. But as soon as you started working with the clients, like, it's clear that you have that heart for a client, and which I think is critically important as well. But without the mindset of, I have value and I know that I'm a good person and I'm going to help people, until that comes across, like, it's really hard, because you're faking it. You're faking who you are, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're like, why should people listen to me? What is it about me that like I should be the one mentoring and I should be the one coaching and I should be the one advising? And then, I think just over reps and years, you start to see the success plan, play out, and you're able to understand why and have that, like you said, self-image about, you being worthy of it all, right? And I still fight it every day, right? Like, I've gotten to a point where I know people love working with me, but you still want to be like, okay, great. Like, even the most successful agents can learn something from me, can gain knowledge, would love working with me. And you still have to keep leveling up your mindset to just continue to play bigger, because you can get caught up in the humdrum and like work your butt off in this industry. But if you're playing too small, you're never going to accomplish as much as you want to accomplish in a year.
You're 100% right. So maybe share with people, like, what kind of mindset activity do you do monthly or weekly or daily? Like, do you have some kind of a routine that has helped you? And I think it's probably different for everybody. So this isn't like, this is what everybody should do, but do you have, like, what would you advise people? I know Psycho-Cybernetics, a book we talk about all the time, was a book that made a big difference. I think on November 10th, I think we talked about that book and said, I go, did you, like, when we talked about it, I go, dude, did you read Psycho-Cybernetics? And you said, yeah, I read it. And I'm like, did you do the exercises? Did you do the homework? And what was your response?
I'm like, dude, they can tell you, like, they don't tell you how to do it. Yeah, they didn't tell you how to do it. And you're like, what? And I think I just wasn't ready to read the book at the time. I was really young. And that's why I just didn't have an open brain for it. Right. I was
like,
just
go do the homework, dude. Yeah.
Right.
You did.
I did do the homework, and it was great. And I really did love it. And so that was one of the most, I tell people that's the most pivotal books I've ever read.
Yeah.
The most pivotal book for sure.
Everybody should read it.
Yes.
Everybody should.
100%. And everybody should actually do the work.
Actually do the work.
Right.
Don't just read it.
Right.
Do the work. What kind of daily mindset maintenance do you do?
I mean, it seems simple. I think that you hear about all this kind of stuff from, the motivational speakers, morning routine, right? But to me, like, I almost call it a success diet. What you're putting in is what you're going to get out. So if you're only if you're watching dumb TV shows and you're not reading books and you're not listening to podcasts and you're only look at the news, like that kind of stuff, it just infiltrates you. It's just simple. Like, I just don't think you're going to be as successful if you really are controlling about what you input. And to me, the two most important things in my life are, first and foremost, number one, just waking up on time. That seems like a simple thing to do. I know all of us have a snooze button. So that's been something that you've mastered. I have at points mastered. And when I'm at my best, it is 5:30 wake up. I meditate for 20 to 30 minutes and I work out. That's what I do. And then I read at night. So most of my stuff is nonfiction books. A lot of the stuff you've probably given to me over the years. But I find that it's simple enough to me with my two kids that, I got to be a dad in the morning too, that I can pack that in.
Yeah. Well, simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, right? Like, I think the self-talk, that's one of the big powerful things is in Psycho-Cybernetics, is that we are always talking to ourselves, always. And we're always listening to the things we say about ourselves. We don't realize how much, and that I just came around to this idea in that new book that we're losing, Rebooting Your Brain, where everything we say to ourselves is an affirmation, positively and negatively.
Right.
And so you can affirm a negative belief over and over again and really do some damage. And when you hear that, you can start to think really quickly, like, crap, what have I been saying over and over again about myself to me? And reinforcing, which is the complete opposite of what you're looking for and the target that you'd like to have in your life. So that's a really powerful lesson. Why are you smiling?
No, I just think you're right.
Yeah. It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just true. Cause it's like, yeah, you get in these little like moments, and I feel like I'm pretty aware of that kind of stuff, but still you are aware, but yet you're in the moment and you just try to make sure it doesn't continue to
Right.
to ruminate.
So let's talk about the market and let's talk about what you're doing, because you're having success in a time when a lot of people are really struggling. I'm seeing some, we do a lot of research on loan officers in our market, and I'm seeing people that are like, I mean, these are people that have been in the business for a long time, and they clearly know how to do mortgages, and they know how to be in this business, although they're clearly not doing the work or the work necessary. And I'm seeing people closing, less than 20 loans a year, less than 15 loans a year,
Mm.
supposedly working in the business full time. And so I'm curious as to what you've been able to do, because you're on track to do, you're going to exceed what you did last year.
I'm on track to do a little bit more than last year. And like, here it is, right? I wasn't proud of that 43 year. I was relatively proud of the one last year. To me, I see myself like hitting that like when I'm in the top 1%, that's when I'll be proud. So yes, I'm doing more than I did last year. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great stepping stone, but I still see more
In a tough
opportunity.
year, in a year
Yeah.
that's down from
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember. So like, all loan officers ignore that reality, but the reality is there is some impact on the market, has impact on our production, whether
Mhm.
we want to admit it or not.
Mhm.
And because if you don't think so, then look at 2020 and 2021. Like, the market had an impact on our production. So you probably aren't giving yourself enough credit in a down market. I'm not giving us enough credit in a down market that we're actually doing better than the statistical average of how much the industry is down. We're doing better than that.
There you go.
Like, I'd love to be doing even more. And that's what we always do. We always, like, no matter what we're doing, we're never satisfied. That's part of being an ambitious salesperson. I think it's a Darren Hardy quote or a Jim Rohn quote. Dissatisfaction is the price of ambition. And so, we're
I like
always
that.
dissatisfied, right?
Yeah.
So, but talk about some of the things that you're doing, because I know you're working on some pretty cool ideas around, helping agents sell homes, helping realtors sell homes, and maybe talk about it from that perspective. How are you marketing yourself to the agent community right now, and any other communities or verticals that you're pursuing?
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to working with agents, I think number one, it's a mutual relationship. I don't just seek anybody to seek anybody. My thought process is like, I'm going to interview you, you're going to interview me, and if we find out, we think we could be a good fit, let's see how we work together, and we'll see how the relationship unfolds, right? And so you're going to get aligned with similar people, and you're just not going to get aligned with others. And so I've accepted that fact. I mean, ultimately, where the mindset I come from is, number one, like, I only do things I like doing, that I lean into. So like masterminds, I've been really good at webinars and lunch and learns, educational type things. I feel like I'm a great presenter
Right.
in front of people. I've been leaning into that some more, for sure. And, right now there's not a lot of buyers out there. And I'm not one of those loan officers that tries to check in every Monday and is like, "Hey, did you talk to any buyers this past weekend that I can help?" That's just not who I am. I want to be of value in our relationship. This is a business relationship, not just a guy who helps your buyers. So I've been creating a power home selling program that just helps listing agents be the best marketers with their listings in a way that attracts buyers in some specific facets. And that's started to be really successful because, as we all know, we've had the most listings than we've had in the last 10 years. So
Right.
if you can get those listings sold quickly, number one, you're going to be a great business partner. Number two, you might get some at bats. Those sellers might want to use you if they need to use a lender, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day,
shot at the buyer.
right, you might get a shot, but at the end of the day, you're just providing more value. That's what I'm trying to do, is coming from a servant heart. And, I tell people, like, this truly does not benefit me. I'm just trying to help you. And I think when you lead with that, the rest will just happen. It just comes back to you.
So talk about your lunch and learns, because I know that when you do a pretty good job with these, and we were just talking about it before we came in here, that you probably need to be doing these more consistently, or that you're going to start doing them more consistently. But you've done a good job. Every time you've done one, you fill the room. Like, we have a pretty good sized conference room here. And so you fill the room with realtors. You got maybe 8 to 10, 12 people in that room.
Yeah.
And then you I just have always noticed like everybody's really engaged.
Mm.
So maybe talk about that formula a little bit and how you promote it, how you get people in the room, and what kind of the format is, because I think that could help a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, how I promote it, it's relatively easy. It's email, it's individualized reach outs. So I'll call them and say, hey, I do want to personally invite you to this. The people that I'm directly connected to try to get them to come. And, one of the things I feel like I'm going to start doing is just asking them to bring a friend too. I've heard people do that. And so I'm going to have them do that. And we use Eventbrite, because it does some automated follow-ups too, to make sure that, they're obviously planning for this if they're on its calendar. So it's a relatively simple formula to try to get people there. And then in terms of the what I do when I'm there with the group, I try not to just talk at. I feel like if I can just make it either truly a mastermind where we've got a group of people talking about a specific topic together, then it's gonna be great. It's gonna be really synergetic, and it's gonna promote so much more than I would have just talked about on my own. And then there's things that, more from a financing perspective that I will engage people with, but I try to just make it very casual. And I'm not like, I don't like doing it in where like people are just sitting down and taking notes and I'm going from slide to slide. Like I'm pointing at people that I know are good at things or what questions you have, and really just making it a forum rather than a talking at conversation.
Right. That's good. And like I said, I think that's one of the big challenges people have is they think the fact that you got outside your comfort zone is like, I'm going to do one of these. And then, you had it all arranged and everybody showed up and it was actually really well attended. But talk about the fear of doing it to begin with.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, this is where everybody stumbles right here.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think once again, you're like, why am I worthy to be listened to? Why is Ryan Pettigrew here to tell agents how to be a better agent? Right. And I think I took a mindset of like, they shouldn't, like, I don't have the
right,
the right almost, right? Like you overstep your boundaries. And I think we do. I talk to so many different agents, and like that's the best part about being a lender is you can hear so many different perspectives and teach people things that other people are doing. Some people are very siloed, right? And so to me, it's just one of those things that
this is one of the things about the business that loan officers, I mean, unless you're brand new, and even if you are brand new and you've gotten some decent training on mortgage lending, that we all think real estate agents. I know I did. I was really intimidated by real estate agents because I knew one of my best friends, still my best friends, is a very successful, accomplished realtor. And I thought all realtors must be like him because there's a realtor. And I actually said that to him once. He mentored me a lot when I first got going in this business because he'd been in the real estate for like a long time because I was 37 when I started in the business. And I said something to him. I can't remember what I said to him. And he kind of laughed at me and he's like, dude, realtors don't know much at all about mortgage lending. He goes, you know more about mortgage lending than I do. And you've only been doing it for a little while. And I go, no, it seems like they really know a lot. He goes, just start paying attention. Mm-hmm. They don't know everything. And I think that's the curse that loan officers have is they think, oh no, they've been a realtor for a really long time. They know more than me. I can promise you, I've never met a realtor. You've never met a realtor who knows more about lending than you do. You just haven't.
For sure. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of it too is.
I'm not being critical of realtors by any stretch of it. It's like, I don't know. And I don't know equally as less about buying and selling homes as they do. I know the financing side. I don't know their side. I've never done it.
No, but I think beyond that, even further too, as I'm pouring into myself and trying to be positive and motivational, that's what I try to also do in this. Like it's a lot of mindset as well too, because I hear people use words like the market's so challenging, my listings are sitting. Like I hear those conversations. And so I want to provide positivity into their life. So if there's any general theme about every class I do, it's about hopefully you walk out of my class more energized and more optimistic about the market based upon what we talked about. If that's what it is, and that's what you've taken away, I've done a great job. Right. And so at first, the fear was huge. I remember.
That's cute. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I really love that. Keep going.
Giuseppe talked about pre-COVID when he would do lunch and learns. And of course, Giuseppe, love him to death. He doesn't love to do those types of things very often. So, he would talk about some of the the things he didn't love about it. And I was like, yeah, I agree, man. That would kind of stink that, be up there in front of some people. And I was so nervous to think about going to a place or having people over for lunch and be the presenter. When I first started, I was like, I would sweat through my shirt. And now it's one of the most favorite things I do in this industry. I think it's so cool.
That's cool.
It's so much fun.
Well, and you've developed some really good relationships doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I've gotten some opportunities, and I think that's the best part, is that when you're inviting somebody to something, whether I've met you or not, it makes them feel special, because most of the times when lenders call you out of the blue, it's, hey, do you want to grab a coffee? Right. And there are a lot of people that I invite to these things that we've never met in person, that I just want to provide a little bit of optimism, hopefully some knowledge too, and maybe some takeaways that you can implement in your business.
It's a great strategy.
And you can get a feel with me.
The mastermind strategy is a really solid strategy, and it'll never go out of style, because every one of them is going to be different. And there's always something more that you can talk about, and it gives you an opportunity to not just sit in there and like pitch a product or anything like that, but really to seriously add value. And I think you bring up a really good point. Like, I would always make it about, I think it's really smart for you to figure out a way to make this about mindset activity for a realtor, because they've struggled. Like you said, they're not, let's face it, 24 deals a year for a realtor is like an amazing real estate agent business, right? And I would find it very challenging to be doing that few of transactions and be up about it. That would be hard for me. I'm much rather be in the mortgage business where, 10 loans a month would be like, this is working.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to maybe 10 or 20 transactions in a year. That would be hard. That would be tough for me.
Totally.
So I think that what they do is really hard. They spend a lot more time with the buyer. I don't think it's any easier or harder than what we do. I just think it's different than what we do. And they do have to, they get a lot more invested in that side of the transaction. And they have no control after what happens when they get that listing, or very little control as to when it sells. My sister's a real estate agent. We were having dinner last night, and she's telling me a story about a listing that she has. And it's just like, what is this? Tell me what this is like now when the buyer's doing this. And like, she goes, it's so bad. It's just, and so they have a tough job too. They really do. So good for you. I think you're doing a really good job pouring into them. Let's switch gears a little bit, because I mentioned this earlier. One of the things that you've really mastered, I feel, and as the owner of the company you work for, then I would have a pretty good idea that you've mastered this process of really tight loans at turnover, really well structured. I know you've had a couple situations, like everybody will, where like, I got to restructure this deal for whatever reason. And it's not like you're perfect. Like, everybody makes a mistake every now and then, but it's rare. It's so rare with you. It seems like you've done such a really good job of mastering that loan structure, and setting, really, this is the most important part, I think, is setting expectations with buyers, setting expectations with real estate agents, so that you're not putting yourself under the gun. Talk about that, because I think it's a skill that just changes everything about capacity. Because when it's done poorly, when you have a bad loan, it's everything, it's all consuming. Like, whenever you should say a bad loan, when you have a bad outcome on a submission, and now you've got to get back involved, it's all consuming. You can't do anything or think about anything else until you fix it.
And I'm not great at compartmentalizing it and being like, some loan officers that we have here,
really good at compartmentalizing.
They're just like, they'll go and play golf, and they can play golf and be off. Where I would be like, I wouldn't be able to do I can't sleep. I can't think about it. I just care about my client so much, and I care about the experience that they have. So it's not something I sleep well with. So thank you for that. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. I think a lot of it comes from the experience that I had with Giuseppe, seeing all those reps, understanding
and
that.
He's great at it too, right? He turns over, like, those files are tight.
For sure. And I think it's not that hard, if I'm being honest. It shouldn't be that hard, at least, as long as you are setting the expectation to the client that the reason we do this is, number one, so that way they have a great experience. And then number two, we're able to make you the most competitive, pre-underwritten, pre-approved buyer out there based upon the things that we do at Zenith, right? And I think it starts before even you get that lead, by educating all of your realtors how you work. Loan officers get salty with realtors about whatever it might be, how they get referred, what they expect out of them. Have they shown them their process? Have they shown them how it should work? Because guess what? When I've done that with my realtors, I don't have issues anymore. They understand this is my process. They understand what they're going to do. My top referral source is like, Ryan, I will not show anybody a house until they have gone through that pre-approval meeting with you and they're done, because I know how much you cover and how much they're educated by the time they get to me.
It's so smart.
I'm like,
It's
I
so smart. We
love
can
you.
stop the podcast right here and we can spend another hour on this,
Right.
because what you just said is so valuable, but loan officers don't do that step. They don't take that vital step. It's like, before we decide if you want to work with me and trust me with your paycheck, could we get together and sit down and let me walk you through my process? If you ever refer me, what your buyer is going to experience.
When
And
they
I
refer
think
me.
the outcome, what's that?
I said when they refer me.
When you refer me.
Yeah.
So that they understand exactly what the buyer is going to be going through, because what you just nailed is what's, I think, one of the challenges in the marketplace right now is that we don't have very confident buyers.
No.
And so they're not confident to make offer. They're not confident to move forward because they're just not sure about what's going on and whether I should do this. And even then you see buyers that like make an offer and then they pull out like 1, 2, 3 days later, like, yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not going to do this.
Right. Yeah.
And it's
Cold
like,
feet.
it's like you clearly haven't been through the process. You haven't been educated enough about what's going to happen, not just to get the loan, but how it's going to impact your finances and your financial future.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you spend time educating them all that. It's such a powerful process. And then once that happens, you get no pushback from anybody about the expectations that you're setting. That's the difference, right?
100%. And do I do things a little bit quicker than a typical pre-approval process? If we need to, sure, I can make that happen, right? But I don't want to. So I think kind of back to your, how is everything right and tight? I just tell my loan partner, Ashley, is a rock star. Like I give her free reign on the qualification side of things. Granted, I'm looking at it, from a high level overview once she sends me notes and we're ready to schedule the pre-approval meeting, but she's a rock star and we just train a lot. We train bi-weekly and we're training throughout the week, and we're looking at guidelines and we're looking at guideline changes. And I just tell her, if you're not 100% certain on something, either get it reviewed or make sure we're getting the documents from them prior to pre-approval. The only things that I leave out there that we might need for underwriting are simple things like an address discrepancy letter, things that aren't going to impact whether or not they can get a loan. Otherwise, I am not sending out a fully underwritten or, truly a pre-approval until I'm telling you, I know you can get a loan as long as you keep your job. And I have my word on that. I've never not been able to close on a home for somebody.
Nor should you.
Nor should I, but it happens so much.
I know it does happen.
It's just like when I tell,
it's the dumbest thing.
Just they're okay with it because it happens so much in our industry. And it makes me furious that clients are handed a pre-approval letter and then 2 weeks being under contract, they find out they can't close on the home. You can do all the due diligence that you need to prior to going under contract.
I mean, I have a bunch of sayings about it because I've been doing it so long. And it all started with that realtor that asked me once, how often do I issue a pre-approval and then the borrower can't get the mortgage? I was like, I don't ever do that. And she's like, whatever. I was like, what do you mean, whatever? And that's when I said, I'm going to guarantee this then. Like, because if are you telling me that happens? She's like, yeah, it happens all the time. I was like, well, I don't know who you're working with, but that's not how this works.
Right.
Because you're either getting a loan. It's like I tell people all the time, customers are either getting a loan or they're not getting a loan every time. It's not, maybe they'll get a loan. That's not how getting loans works. It's you're either getting a loan or you're not. So it's just simple fact of like, let me hear your story. Let me figure out what I need to verify it so that you don't have to risk earnest money and waste time getting your hopes up to buy a house you can't buy. Like, I don't want to be that person in your life. It's just amazing to me that it still goes on.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
All the time.
It's crazy. Well, so then you don't get any pushback from the from the realtors or for the clients. And we'll talk about the tough clients. Talk about because, there are tough clients that are maybe not wanting to do everything you say and you're still going to work on the loan and you're still going to do that. How do you manage that? Because that's still something that I think a lot of loan officers think like, well, I have to do what makes the customer happy.
I won't do that.
Yeah. Talk about that.
I think when you're convicted in your process and you understand it's for the well-being of the client and for the experience that they have, and your realtors are trained by you that this is your process, as long as you tell them this is how I work and here's why. If you still have somebody that's like, no, I don't want that, then we're just not meant for each other. I'm happy to tell a client, like, if that's not what you want to do, that's okay. You can go to the local credit union and go get a rate. I'm just like, that's totally fine. I'm not meant for everybody, but I just haven't had that in a really long time.
No, you typically won't.
No, I just won't. There's just, and like anybody that's that hard to work with initially, just wait until you keep working with them.
You're dating right now.
Oh
You're
my
not married
gosh.
yet.
Oh, just wait. Yeah, trust me.
I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of loan officers have is that they're not really thorough on the due diligence on the front end. Then they think they have a loan. They're not sure they have a loan, but they don't think they're not sure, right? They're like, I'm going to be good. Go ahead. You're pre-approved as long as you do this, 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 and this. And when I hear those kinds of pre-approvals, I'm like, that's a pre-qual.
Yeah,
you're still not approved because I haven't seen information I have to see before I can say you're getting the loan.
We're yes men, right?
Is it what?
We're yes men and women.
Yeah,
man, you can go buy a house. Here's your pre-approval letter. I got you, dude. It's easy. It's easy to do that and then do all the hard work when they're under contract and they have to get you those things. Right. But
I think that's probably a sales strategy at a lot of companies. It's just like bang out the pre-qual letters. That one of our competitors that rhymes with letter is you can do an online approval, because I went online and tried it and I'm like, oh, I'm going to put this information in. And they gave me, they told me I had a pre-approval letter, which is, I find this interesting. It's marketing. But then, read the fine print, and the fine print is like, you're not approved. And I'm like, this isn't a pre-approval letter. You say it down here, but up here you called it my pre-approval letter. But down here it says you're really not pre-approved until we get all your documentation. So I'm like, but I feel like that's kind of misleading. I don't, not kind of misleading. I think that's really misleading. And so I don't think I don't think that's the way to run the business, but I think that maybe a lot of companies and maybe a lot of loan officers have that strategy. You just tell them they're going to get a loan. You'll worry about it later.
Because most of the time it'll work out. It does. Most of the time it does work out. It's just the one time that it doesn't.
But it's ugly.
It's ugly.
It's ugly when you don't, it can be really ugly when it's not good. It's really ugly and torturous. And then the loan officer is hijacked and he's spending his day trying to clean up a mess, or days trying to clean up a mess, back and forth with underwriting, back and forth with the customer, back and forth with the realtors, moving closing dates. It's a nightmare. You do not have to live that way.
No, you don't.
And that's, I guess that's the message for loan officers. If you're listening to this, is like, God, if you're living that way, pick up the phone and call me. It does not have to be that way. It does not have to work like that. And we talk about this all the time. The customer will do whatever you tell the customer to do. If you sound like you know what you're talking about when you tell them. But if you don't tell them what to do and you tell them everything they want to hear, that's what you're going to get.
Yep.
And so it's going to be a mess.
Yep.
What other advice would you have for somebody who might be struggling with that?
Struggling with just
the setting the expectation, holding them accountable, having a problem. You said one of the things that you said that I should have picked up on was, here's how I work.
Have your process. Too many people don't have a process, right? I think that's integral in this business is just to map out what your process is, because when you can, number one, explain it effectively to both the borrower and the agents, then you know exactly what you're going to do. The client knows what you're going to do. And so too many loan officers just kind of, take a nap here, get dogs here and do this and do that. And here's a letter. And then, number one, it doesn't create a great experience. But number two, it's usually something will fall through the cracks.
Well, I love that. You say you got to define your experience and define your process and follow it, and then follow it and not change it because the borrower doesn't want to do. I think the analogy that we've used here a lot is that you don't get to tell the dentist how they're going to clean your teeth today.
Right.
When you you can't just show up at the dentist's office. You have to have an appointment.
Right.
They walk you in that chair. They sit you down. They put on the bib. There's a tech that's answering all your questions. Somebody takes your blood pressure. You don't get to go like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Just clean my teeth. That's not how this works.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things I've learned from Giuseppe is when you are structured and you respond back to simple emails like, hey, I want to schedule a call, or hey, I want a rate and fees quote, right? That doesn't mean they want a rate and fees quote. They just don't know what else to say.
Right.
So that means they want to be led right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so G has always emphasized, just respond back with your templated, here's what the next steps are to schedule a discovery call X, Y, and Z. And maybe you can add a blurb that's like, we'll talk about this during the process. Right. But too many loan officers are like, okay, the rate today is 6.625 and the fees are, $4,500. I can guarantee you that's what happens. Right. And so So that's what we have to remember is most clients just don't know what they're talking about. So they're just going to say something.
And to get a positive response, they'll like fudge that rate a little bit.
Right.
A little bit lower than it is today because I'm not locking you in today. Like that's what a lot of consumers don't understand is that if you get a rate quote without providing any data to anybody, odds are you're getting a market rate quote that is far below the rate you could get if you were ready to lock in today.
Right.
Because they got to keep you engaged.
Right.
And you're not closing for at least 30, 60, 90 days. So they got to we're like 6.25 right now. And that's not where the market is. So that's funny. I don't think enough people realize that. So what are your goals like? Tell us about the future. Like where's Ryan Pettigrew, I give Ryan Pettigrew RPM, Ryan Pettigrew Mortgage, but where are you going? Like what's the long-term goal? I don't want to ask you what your goal is for this year because we're in the middle of it, but like 5 years from now, what's it look like?
5 years from now, I see myself as a top 10 originator here in the Denver metro area. I definitely want to grow our team, make my current loan partner more of a team lead, have another, loan partner as I guess an assistant. The thing is that our team is so efficient. So I don't necessarily grow the team wide. And I love being the advisor. So I'm never going to take a step back and not talk to clients. That's not the business I particularly want to run, but I want to continue being able to help more and more clients. And ultimately all that means is growing our team a little bit more, being able to say that, we truly do make an impact. I think the biggest thing for me is getting to a point where we are making a bigger impact in the community that we serve. That's it. Right. And that's realtors and clients.
Right.
I don't want to be more well-known for selfish reasons. I want to be more well-known because I know that the people that I'm getting to help right now are getting awesome advice and they're being able to lean into things that we do to make more realtors and more clients successful. Great people deserve that. So that's why I want to continue to grow.
Right on, dude. Right on. Well, I know you're going to be, like I said, I told you this the other day and I don't know why I was thinking about it, but I just said, yeah, Ryan is going to be, and I hate using the $100 million producer thing because I realize I think it's such a shallow way to measure success because it's volume based, which none of us have. I mean, you could target all $1 million loans and do nothing else and do 100 loans a year and do 100 million, but it's really about, I like thinking about the families we help because I think that keeps us a little more grounded. And so when I think about $100 million in our market today, it's about 200 families a year, which is a significant number of families whose lives you can impact.
Yeah, if you're doing that in this market, I think you're either the top one or you're in the top 3 in the state for sure.
So being able to help 200 families a year would be an amazing thing to do, and to know that you helped impact the lives of 200 families. So I just, like I said, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like going, Ryan's going to be doing this. Like that's happening. Like I can see it. I feel like I had a conversation, like I could see the future of it. And I was like, this is just going to happen. So it's really cool when I can see that kind of confidence and when I know it and I'm like, okay, I just got to impart this wisdom into you. Like,
yeah, thank you.
You have to know it. And
I think it's helpful to have people in my life that are helping me, with that too. So thank you.
Well, that's it. I mean, this has been like a great episode. This has been really enlightening. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you taking the time. It's the day before the 4th of July here. And I scheduled this with you like yesterday the day before.
Couple days
ago.
Going,
hey, I got to get another podcast in. So thanks for doing it. I really appreciate it. This has been Make the Call. My name is Dave Gallegos. This is Ryan Pettigrew. And thanks a lot for listening. Please give us a rating and please share this with people if you'd enjoy it. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Make the Call with Dave Gallegos, brought to you by Zenith Home Loans. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and share the show with a friend or colleague who would also find value.